The sun hung low over the endless plains of Montana, painting the tall grass in shades of gold and amber. The wind whispered through the fields, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers and earth. Elias came, a rugged cowboy with a weathered face and a heart hardened by years on the frontier, knelt beside a woman lying motionless in the grass. Her dress, once a pristine cream, was now torn and stained with blood. A bruise darkened her cheek, and her auburn hair spilled across the ground like a halo. Elias's calloused hands hovered over her, unsure whether to touch her or let her be. His eyes, sharp and wary, scanned the horizon for any sign of danger. The arrow pointing to her in his mind wasn't just a mark, it was a question. Who was she, and why was she here, bleeding in the middle of nowhere? Elias had been riding the range, checking on his cattle, when he'd spotted her. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, a mirage born of too many lonely days. But as he drew closer, the reality hit him like a stampede. She was real, and she was hurt. Badly. He dismounted his horse, a loyal bay named Whiskey, and approached cautiously. The plains were no place for a woman alone, especially not one dressed like she'd stepped out of a frontier town's Sunday best. Her bonnet lay a few feet away, trampled into the dirt. Elias's gut twisted. This wasn't right. Ma'am, he called softly, his voice rough from disuse. No response. Her chest rose and fell, shallow but steady. She was alive, at least. He knelt closer, his hands brushing the grass as he checked her wounds. A gash on her leg oozed blood, and her arm was scraped raw. The bruise on her face looked fresh, like someone had struck her hard. Elias's jaw tightened. He'd seen enough violence in his 35 years. Bandits, bar fights, the occasional range war, but this felt different. Personal. He tore a strip from his shirt and bound her leg as best he could, his fingers moving with the precision of a man used to tending wounds on the trail. The nearest town, Willow Creek, was a half-day's ride, and the doctor there wasn't much for miracles. Still, he had to try. Elias glanced at the sky. Dusk was coming, and with it, the chill of a Montana night. He couldn't leave her here. Not like this. Whiskey nickered softly, sensing his rider's unease. Elias stood, wiping his hands on his vest, and made a decision. He'd get her to the old Miller cabin, an abandoned homestead a mile east. It wasn't much, just a leaky roof and a stone hearth, but it was shelter. He scooped her up gently, her slight frame light in his arms, and carried her to Whiskey. The horse eyed him warily but stood still as Elias draped her across the saddle. He climbed up behind her, one arm steadying her as he urged Whiskey forward. The ride to the cabin was slow, the terrain uneven and the woman's condition weighing on his mind. Her head lolled against his chest, and every so often, she let out a faint whimper. Elias kept his eyes on the path, but his thoughts raced. Who was she? A runaway? A thief? Or worse, someone's victim? The West was full of stories like hers, but they rarely ended well. He pushed the thought away. He wasn't one for fairy tales, but he wasn't about to let her die out here either. The Miller cabin came into view as the last light faded. It was a squat, weathered thing, its windows dark and its door hanging crooked on its hinges. Elias dismounted, carrying the woman inside. The air was stale, thick with the smell of dust and old wood. He laid her on a rickety cot in the corner, then set to work. He found a bucket by the door, filled it from a nearby stream, and cleaned her wounds with a rag. The gash on her leg was deep but not fatal. The bruise on her face worried him more, it hinted at a story he wasn't sure he wanted to hear. As he worked, her eyes fluttered open. They were green, like the prairie after a rain, and clouded with pain. Where? She whispered, her voice barely audible. Easy, ma'am, Elias said, keeping his tone low. You're safe. Found you out in the grass. What's your name? She blinked, her gaze unfocused. Clara, she murmured, then winced as she tried to sit up. Clara Bennett. All right, Clara Bennett, Elias said, gently pushing her back down. You're hurt. Stay put. I'm Elias Kane. This is my land, or near enough. What happened to you? Her eyes darted to the door, then back to him. Fear flickered across her face, raw and unguarded. They're coming, she whispered. They'll find me. Elias's hand went to the revolver at his hip, a reflex born of years on the frontier. Who's coming? Clara's breath hitched. My husband. And his men. They think I stole something. Elias raised an eyebrow but kept his voice steady. Did you? She hesitated, then shook her head. No. But they won't believe me. They never do. He studied her for a long moment. Her dress, though torn, was fine. Too fine for a woman wandering the plains alone. Her hands were soft, uncalloused, the hands of someone who'd never worked a ranch. She wasn't from around here. What did they think you stole? A locket, she said, her voice breaking. It was my mother's. He gave it to me when we married, but now he says it's his. Says it's worth more than I know. He hid me when I wouldn't give it back. Elias's grip tightened on the rag in his hand. He'd seen men like her husband before, men who thought they owned the world and everyone in it. Where's this locket now? Clara's hand went to her neck, where a faint chain glinted beneath her collar. Here, she said, pulling it out. It was small, gold, with a delicate clasp. He'll kill me for it. Not if I have a say, Elias muttered. He stood, peering out the cabin's grimy window. The plains were dark now, the stars just beginning to prick the sky. If her husband was coming, they didn't have much time. He turned back to her. Can you ride? Clara nodded weakly. I think so. Good. We're heading to Willow Creek at first light. Doctor there can patch you up proper. Till then, you rest. I'll keep watch. She grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. You don't understand. He's not just a man. He's got money, power. He owns half the territory. If you help me, he'll come for you too. Elias met her gaze, unflinching. I've faced worse than a rich man with a grudge. You're not dying out here, Clara. Not on my watch. For the first time, her eyes softened. Why are you doing this? He shrugged, turning back to the window. Ain't right, leaving a woman to the wolves. Besides, I've got nothing left to lose. The night passed in tense silence. Elias sat by the door, his rifle across his lap, listening for the sound of hoofbeats. Clara slept fitfully, murmuring in her dreams. When dawn broke, pale and cold, Elias helped her onto whiskey. She was weaker than she'd let on, but her jaw was set with determination. They rode west, toward Willow Creek, the locket tucked safely beneath her dress. The town was a dusty speck on the horizon, its wooden buildings sagging under the weight of time. Elias knew the sheriff there, a man named Hargrove who owed him a favor or two. If anyone could stand up to Clara's husband, it was him. But as they crested a hill, Elias's heart sank. 3 riders were approaching from the east, their silhouettes dark against the rising sun. One carried a rifle, another had a badge glinting on his chest. Clara tensed behind him. That's him, she whispered. That's my husband. Elias's hand went to his revolver. Stay close, he said. This ain't over yet. The plains stretched wide
around them, offering no cover, no escape. But Elias Kane wasn't the kind to run. As the riders drew closer, he squared his shoulders and faced them down, the weight of Clara's trust heavy on his back. The West was a hard place, but it was his place. And he'd be damned if he let it claim